From the latest on Caribbean cruises to kosher safaris, pilgrimages to Jewish Eastern Europe, and award-winning wines and international cuisine in sun-drenched Tel Aviv. Sit back and enjoy the trip with the travel edition of the Jerusalem Post podcast.
We're on the road again, David.
On the road again.
Yes, you're just repeating me now. Was that supposed to be a song? Because I didn't hear any music there.
Oh, go on, he's terrible. You're just not nice. I've known you for at least a year.
And at least one of those days I was nice. You've known me for at least a year. You've known me for at least 40 years.
Hang on a second.
No, 35.
Whenever we're out there, Catherine, his wife, don't listen. Whenever you're flirting with someone and you try to make out that you're
David,
younger...
please edit this out now.
Whenever you're flirting with someone, male or female, doesn't matter.
It's called networking.
Yeah, whenever you're networking, you always try to make out that we graduated college about 5 years ago and that's it. Whereas, as you said,
we met at nursery 35 years ago. Some people might call it university. I call it nursery.
God. Anyway, what are we doing this time?
I think it's about time we saw some nice new hotels in Israel.
I think it's phenomenal how many new hotels there are. We're going to be focusing on one in Tel Aviv and where we are now in Jerusalem. But the whole country is awash with new hotel rooms. And not just in those classic places like Eilat and Tiberias, and obviously there are the kibbutz hotels and moshav hotels, but many other towns are opening hotels now. It's incredible where you find them.
For those that haven't listened to David and I throughout our recording history going back 10 years...
Shame on you.
Or well done you for being discerning. But David and I first started talking about sport when we were podcasting, and we used to talk about football. And I remember being a guest on another radio show, and we spoke about Israel's bid to host UEFA 2020.
So what's that, the main European competition?
It was the main European football competition, and they were looking for 8 or 9 venues to host this competition. Israel put in a bid, and it failed dismally. And it failed for 2 reasons. One was the bid was, don't worry, everything will be all right, rather than a very nice bid that's everything. And the other thing was a lack of hotel rooms. Right. Israel did not have the hotel capacity. 7 or 8 years later, there are hotels opening all the time in Israel. COVID, unfortunately, slowed that process down a bit, but hotels are opening daily.
It is quite remarkable. And on that particular point, some credit has to go to the governments of Israel and the tourism ministry for really trying to push this. And hopefully, the idea of build and they will come.
And Israel has managed to attract some very large international brands. In the past, there were the wonderful brands like Dan and Israel, Israeli companies. But a few months ago, Kempinski opened up in Tel Aviv, and Accor, which is one of the world's largest brands. And if you're in Europe, you'll know Accor very well. And
in the States, it's Fairmount, right?
But there's also Movenpick. There's brands like Ibis, Swiss Hotel, a lot of very well-known brands. A new brand has come to Israel, and it's called MGallery, and we are going to visit 2 of its new hotels.
So right now, we are in the Teatron Hotel in Jerusalem. Teatron is the Hebrew word. I assume it comes from Greek or something like that in the first place, but it is the same word as theatre. And the reason it's called the Theatre Hotel or Teatron is because we are literally across the street from the Jerusalem Theatre, which is the main entertainment venue in this city.
And on this podcast, we are also going to go to the Elkonin Hotel. For those of you that know your history, the Elkonin Hotel is one of the oldest hotels in Israel.
And we're going to be visiting the Elkonin a little bit later on, but first we are here in Jerusalem in the Teatron. So that's our starting point, and we've got, of course, our usual 2 quiz questions for you. So we'll start with the Jerusalem question and then move on to the Tel Aviv question. So regarding Jerusalem, question number 1. Jerusalem of Gold is perhaps the best known song associated with this city. Written in 1967, the question is, who wrote the song?
And question number 2. On April the 11th, 1909, residents of Jaffa formed a new neighbourhood. It was called Ahuzat Bayit. What is that neighbourhood called today?
The answers at the end of the pod.
This is Mark Gordon from the Jerusalem Post Podcast Travel Edition.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod, or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com. They always say behind every hotel there's a car park. but they also say behind every good hotel there is an excellent general manager who will bring the place to life and give it the signature that the brand wants, but also a little bit of their experience and their own personal touch. We're joined by probably the most appropriately named man in the hotel business, and he's probably sick of hearing this, Sheldon Ritz.
Yes, I have shares in the Ritz-Carlton Group. As I wish.
and it's obviously the first time you've heard that joke.
Yes, the very first time. But talking about the car park, we have 99 rooms and suites, 21 residences, and we have 700 underground parking. 700 for the hotel.
Do you have, and we'll get on to all about the hotel, and we have literally just walked in. In fact, the introduction that people heard a few moments ago, we haven't even recorded yet. Do you have an events hall, a conference area as well that would help fill up those 700 parking places?
Yes, for sure. The owner, the Chassid family, who are very famous builders in Jerusalem, this is the first hotel, and they were very clever because we are right opposite the Teatron Yerushalayim, the theatre, the Jerusalem theatre. And he even built a bridge connecting the car park to the theatre. So every time there's shows across the road, people park in our hotel. Very astute businessman.
So on that note, I was talking about this with my wife in the build-up to us coming. I was saying I was wondering if the hotel and the theatre are somehow going to connect, not in terms of a bridge, but in terms of packages or something like that. Is that one of your hopes?
Yes, it is. Actually, we reached out to a very nice lady. Her name is Sharon. She's the general manager. And we also physically connected because of the bridge. But also, basically a boutique hotel, 73 rooms, 26 suites. We're not going to have big weddings and bar mitzvahs and music and things like that. We're going to be a lot of diplomats and corporate and foreign individual tourists. And so we don't have huge space. So we joined forces, and anyone that wants a wedding or bar mitzvah or a big seminar for like 200 people, 300 people, we just send them across the road, and then they take care of that, and then they will send us some work. After a theatre show, some people that are coming from outside town might stay with us. So we have a very good relationship with them, and it's just going to get better and better.
I won't ask my question about where the name for the hotel came from. But growing up in London, if you went to the West End to the theatre, you would always go out for dinner and a show. Is that something the hotel will do is there a restaurant here?
Yes, there is a restaurant. We're going to have actually 2 restaurants here, and we also have a very nice coffee shop dairy restaurant, plus a very nice bar, which is going to be open late. And in September, October sometime, we're building another restaurant, like a chef's restaurant, a meat restaurant, which will attract also the hotel guests and, of course, the outside guests as well. And that we plan to open till after the shows across the road to attract that business as well.
It's a very interesting location. I've watched this building going up over the years. I got a long sort of professional association with the theatre across the road. So every time I come, I've seen developments. I've thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what it's going to be. Years ago, there were, say, 2 areas where there were hotel clusters in Jerusalem. At the entrance, there are 3 hotels, and then a whole crowd, obviously, around the famous King David and other hotels that open in that area. Why the decision here? And I should say, there are many, many, many hotels opening in Jerusalem right now. So why this location?
The Chassid family bought this property, I think it's 12 or 13 years ago. It used to be a parking lot here, with a foresight to open their first hotel. There was a lot of red tape, and apparently they started building like 2 or 3 years ago the hotel, because they knew that, first of all, the neighborhood Tel Aviv is one of the top, I can't say the top, but one of the top neighborhoods in Jerusalem. But of course, it's also far from the madding crowd. King David Street, with all the bustle and hustle and lack of parking space and lack of greenery. Okay, they have the nice views of the old city, but I also have beautiful rustic area with the Moon Park at the bottom. Once we have the suites, phenomenal views of the hills of southern Jerusalem, right up to Gilo, Beit Jala, something like that. The main attraction was the Tel Aviv area. And if you think about it, we're 900 meters from Emigrafame and the first station. And we're 20 minutes walk from the old city. It's going to become it's called the Cultural Mile, all the way from the Islamic Museum, all the way through. And apparently not far from here, they're going to be building a cable car to the old city. And we have 3 bus routes here. They come to the hotel. King David Street, we 10 minutes walk.
This hotel is part of the MGallery brand from Accor, and there is a second MGallery hotel opening up in Israel. What is the MGallery brand? What does it signify?
First of all, Accor Hotels, they manage 5,500 hotels throughout the world. It's less known in America. America, you have the Fairmont, but in Europe and the Far East, and also in Australia, the Southern Hemisphere countries, and Africa, you have a lot. There's 46 different brands. So MGallery is part of the luxury lifestyle brand. I don't know if the listeners know, but the Raffles brand, you have Sofitel and Emblems and MGallery. So we're part of the deluxe brand. And then you have the middle ones, you have the Move and Pick, and you have Swiss Hotel. The Swiss Hotel is going to be opening up in Bat Yam next year. And then the budget hotels are the Ibis that we have 2 in Jerusalem. And then you have Novotels and you have Mercure. By the way, they're also opening up in Mevaseret Zion, a large hotel called Move and Pick. That's going to be a middle brand as well.
I have had the pleasure of going to the original Raffles Hotel in Singapore and having a Singapore sling.
My mother, when we had a little white thing for the first time in the kitchen, and you would open the door and put something in it and turn a knob and it would magically heat that thing up. For the whole of her life, she called it a Movenpick. She could not get the word right, so she was a walking ad for you.
That actually didn't answer your question. I'm thinking about it now. That the MGallery, there's 123 around the world. It's in the luxury brand, but it's also a feminine brand. In all the rooms, it's like very pastel colors and white colors. It's not a heavy hotel.
You brought us very nicely onto what the hotel has. We very quickly went into one of the rooms. Lovely, as you said, a great view, lovely bathroom. Beyond the normal amenities, what have you got? What is your sort of, apart from the femininity, what else?
All the products in the rooms are Clarence products, a very good French company, and we're going to have a Clarence spa. They are so professional. We had to send out our masseurs for a week training in Paris and to bring them back on our account just so they do the massage how Clarence wants it, and it's going to be all the Clarence products. We have a beautiful indoor swimming pool, unbelievable, swimming 364 days, not 365. Yom Kippur we're going to close. So that's going to be all year round. And we have the most amazing synagogue, which I'll be happy to show you. It was inaugurated by the Rishon LeZion, Rav Amar.
The Sephardic or the Eastern Chief Rabbi
Of Jerusalem.
And he put on the mezuzah. We inaugurated a Sephardi Sefer Torah and an Ashkenazi Sefer Torah. It's something, everyone walks in there and they're on complete shock because I've never seen in a hotel a synagogue so beautiful. And I'm sure you'll agree with me when I take you there.
Folks, look out for the pictures on social media, of course, at Mark David Pod.
You mentioned being closed on Yom Kippur. You mentioned the synagogue. I'm assuming this is a kosher hotel?
Yes, it's kosher. The family Chassid are Shomer Shabbat, kosher. Going to have also glut meat available. We're actually going to be Rabbanut Yerushalayim, but we're going to be on the same level as like the Waldorf Astoria. We got 99%, maybe 99.5% of our breakfast is totally Mahadran. And on Shabbat, there's going to be meat as well. Landar or Mahfoud or Reuben. It's going to be a very high level.
Just for those of you who are either not religious Jewish or not Jewish at all, maybe ignore the last answer. If you are religious, you'll understand that Sheldon's talking about the various rabbinic authorities that approve all the foods here, which means it's at a very high standard of kosher. What about the food offering? What types of things are going to be sampling here?
Because we're in an area that used to be vineyards and Zatar was here many years ago and olive oil that made presses, we're going to try and do everything like earthy and towards this area. Another thing that I have to tell you is that hotel is, first of all, it's no single plastic use. So everything in the rooms are degradable, all the boxes, and if there is plastic, it's degradable, number one. And number two as well, with regards to the food, everything is going to be very, very healthy food here. But we are going to have, of course, on the Friday night, you're going to have your gefilte fish, and you're going to have chopped chicken liver, and you're going to have asados. Maybe that's not so healthy. But I think our guests will kill us if we don't give them the traditional food that they want. We can't force everyone to be healthy. But on the other hand, we're going to have so many health items, vegetable bars, fruit smoothies in the morning, and sliced fruits and vegetables cut in front of the guests. So it's really the focus is on the health.
That will help balance off the asado, the Gilbert.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Sheldon Ritz, who is the general manager of the recently opened Teatron, or Theatre Hotel in Jerusalem.
Thanks so much.
The funny thing about being in high-end hotels when they open is you meet all sorts of interesting people. And we're now having dinner in the company of a veteran columnist from the Jerusalem Post.
I had the privilege of working with Griffith Cashman 25 years ago, and she was already a very experienced journalist at that point, and she's been doing the same thing ever since. And me being of a different generation, I've moved on, I've had 20-30 jobs since then, and she still has the same column that I'm sure all of our listeners read on a regular basis.
By moved on, do you mean that the Post like her and they didn't like you?
Like Tennyson's book, I go on forever.
So the reason that we've got Greer onto the podcast is to talk to somebody else who's also staying here over this 24-hour period about her experience both of Teatron, the new hotel, but also she's a long-time colleague, associate of Sheldon's. So first of all, just tell us a little bit about how you know Sheldon.
Well, I know Sheldon because Sheldon used to work in the King David for a very, very long time. And he was absolutely a super duper hospitality man. There is no other way to describe it. He used to deal all the time with diplomats, and they had the most incredible demands. The one time he would have a king from one country and a president from another and a prime minister from another, all with their delegations, and he had to work around the clock, literally, to satisfy all of them, and he succeeded.
So what do you think of Sheldon's new hotel? Can you see that eye for detail here?
I think that Sheldon is going to turn himself inside out to make this the number one hotel in Jerusalem.
We just had dinner in your company and the company of other members of Jerusalem Post staff and with people from other media outlets here in Israel. We were dished out a 7-course, maybe 8-course meal. In fact, we just were brought a lovely cup of hot water just with peppermint in it. And we've got some beautiful petit four and fruit on the table. What did you think about the offering this evening?
I thought that it was pretty good because we do have vegetarians at the table. It started off with several vegetarian options. We also have carnivores at the table, so they brought a lot of different meats, lamb and beef and turkey. I love the lamb, like the turkey even more. Didn't like the beef too much, but everything is a matter of personal taste.
I hadn't noticed there was peppermint tea. I just thought that was more wine.
No, the wine comes in the glasses and the tea comes in the teacups.
I think they know who I am. They just keep bringing me wine.
Yeah, barbarian, absolute barbarian. People listening to this, looking for a place to book, you live not too far away from this hotel.
Walk and a half.
So we were talking to Sheldon about why he chose this location, or why the company chose this location. Do you think it's the right place for a hotel?
I think it's a perfect place for a hotel because the Jerusalem Theatre across the road, it gets visiting theatre groups. Isn't it wonderful that they only have to cross the road? So that's one aspect. Then they get major events from abroad, like the Genesis Prize, where a whole bunch of people turn up from America. Isn't it great that they have a luxury hotel to call a home away from home just across the road from where they've got the function? And it doesn't matter what the weather's like, they're not going to get very wet and they're not going to get very hot.
We're really lucky that dinner's finishing in a few minutes and we have tickets to go and see a stand-up show in the...
Me too.
Yeah. So that's the next thing to look forward to. Are you coming with to the comedy?
I'm coming, but I have to tell you something about Sheldon, who always listens to other people's opinions, even if he doesn't necessarily go along with it, but he does listen. I was talking to him about this hotel long before it opened, or he was talking to me, shall we say. And I said to him, Sheldon, what about the little boxes of sewing kits? And he said, of course we'll have them. And I said, will the needles be threaded? And he said, why? And I said, because I can't thread a needle. And he looked at me like I was kidding, but I'm not. I honestly cannot thread a needle. I'm the daughter of a fabulous needlewoman, and I can't thread a needle. So every time I stay in a hotel that has sewing kits with threaded needles, I steal them.
We were talking off the microphone about the types of things people steal from hotels, and sewing kits was not one of them.
Anyway, he listened, and if you open the drawer in your room, the one that's underneath where you put the suitcases, you will find a sewing kit with threaded needles.
Griff A. Cashman, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, and may you continue with your column for many, many years to come.
Thank you so much.
It's a bit hot in here, isn't it?
It is a bit warm. I thought we were going to the bar after dinner.
Oh, my Lord.
I can smell wood. There are some nice wooden benches, like in 3 layers.
And there are coals opposite us.
I don't think this is the bar, David.
The things we do for a podcast, fully clothed in a sauna.
You're fully clothed. The light's not working. I took my clothes off.
Oh, dearie me. After our trip to Berlin and that nude spa, you're becoming much braver, aren't you?
I forgot that. I was writing down all the experiences I had recently, and I forgot the nude spa, possibly for the best. Anyway.
We're both fully clothed, sitting in the sauna next to the pool. We would have recorded next to the pool, but it is actually really late at night, and so the pool, for safety reasons, obviously, is locked up. It's a gorgeous pool. It's long. Apparently, it's nice and warm.
It's indoors.
It's indoors, and it's not too deep, but it's plenty deep for those people who want to swim.
Maybe before or after breakfast, we'll go for a dip in the morning, but maybe not take the recording equipment.
Yeah, I'm already worried about the recording gear in a sauna.
The Teatron is so far proving to be a really lovely hotel. We've come down to the ground level. It's built sort of ground downwards rather than ground up. So you come in on reception on the 3rd floor.
If you're confused about what Mark said, which I certainly am, I have to explain that in Israel, especially in the Jerusalem area, there are lots and lots of hills. And so the way they build apartments and hotels is very often on a slope. What you would call the ground floor is way down, and it might be that the main entrance is halfway up the building. So it's something to get used to if you come into a hotel in Israel.
On floor 0,
yes,
we have a swimming pool, a gym, some very nice changing rooms, and at the end of each of the changing rooms, I'm led to believe, is a sauna. Well, I know because we're sat in a sauna, right, but I also believe in the ladies' changing room there is a sauna.
And there is also the synagogue down here. And I'm sure those of you who are Jewish or those of you who are interested in going to synagogue in hotels in Israel will know that in most hotels, it's often a function room that serves 2 purposes and isn't necessarily the most glamorous room in the hotel.
The synagogue here, however, is one of the most luxurious I've seen. I could sit on those chairs all day, which is a bit of a problem in the synagogue because you stand up and sit down.
It's pucker, as I believe they say in the UK.
It follows the theme from the hotel. There's a lot of white, a lot of luxury, a little bit of gold thrown in.
Right.
But ultimately, it's very nicely done, and it's somewhere where you want to hang out.
Did you notice at dinner the lighting above our heads?
I did.
It's like a cloud.
Almost like a woven cloud.
It's beautiful. I don't know what it's made from, if it's metal or whatever, but really, a lot of effort has gone into making this hotel nice. Yes, we are the guests of the hotel, but we both really genuinely feel that this is a very warm place, and the staff have been phenomenal.
I think the staff is the big selling point here. We spoke to Sheldon earlier, and you can see that quality in the staff here. They're used to dealing with, or they've been trained to deal with, customers who have a high expectation. You turn around, someone is there with what you're thinking about.
He has cherry-picked, I believe the term is, staff from hotels all around Jerusalem.
from and not just any hotel, the good hotels of Jerusalem.
Yeah, he's done a phenomenal job. Okay, last thing to talk about for now before I think I'm ready for bed, although
before
maybe
we
a
melt
drink.
in the sauna.
Yeah, I know. The sweat is actually pouring off me. What's your bedroom like?
Bigger than yours for once.
It is. Yeah, when we've been in Dubai, each time, or in the UAE, each time I've had the bigger bedroom.
And better.
The bedroom is good. It's okay for you?
It's lovely. Again, it's very bright, but not like bright as in shining, but just clean, modern, white, crisp.
Huge television.
That's one of the things.
I know.
I very rarely turn on a television in a hotel nowadays.
Now, here's my thing about hotels in general, and I'd love to hear what you think about this if you're listening to the podcast at Mark David Pod. A lot of people spend a lot of money on a hotel. Is that, to some extent, a waste of money? Because at the end of the day, unless you're at a beach resort where you really are using the hotel 24/7, you're only in the hotel to sleep. So what you need, and maybe this does cost, is a firm bed, a good pillow, and cleanliness. What do you need beyond that?
It's not just about the bed. I think you're right. You need a room. You need your room to be clean. You need all the facilities that you might think about while you're there. So like a shoehorn, polish, a fridge to put things in while you're there.
A threaded needle.
A threaded needle. Good point. Bottle opener, glasses. You're not going to be out 24/7, but when you come back to your room and you want to have a drink or lie down for an hour, you want things to be there. You want a good shower, a good bathroom, and you want the hotel to have excellent breakfast, excellent catering, a really nice atmosphere, and staff that will look after you.
Okay, and I think this hotel checks the boxes, or boxes the checks.
No, checks the boxes.
I don't know.
Boxing with checks is like an Olympic sport. We've been to Prague, but we never went boxing while we were there.
Anyway, time for bed, time for bar.
Bar.
Bar, 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 bar,
Bar, bar, bar,
bar.
From the hills of Jerusalem to the coast of Tel Aviv.
La 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 la.
La 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 la.
What about them?
Nothing, I'm just singing. No, we have left the beautiful Teatron Hotel and come to the other new MGallery Hotel in Israel.
Talk about contrasts. You've got the contrasts of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, the old, the new, the historic, the modern. And I suspect, on the basis of our entry to this hotel, that we're also going to see plenty of contrasts between the Teatron and Elkonin.
We leave the very modern Teatron Hotel in the very ancient city of Jerusalem.
Ooh.
And we now move to the very modern city of Tel Aviv and the historic Elkonin Hotel.
Oh, look at you being poetic. But you're absolutely right. This is a hotel in the Neve Tzedek area of Tel Aviv. Mark, you know a lot more about it than me. It's a gentrified area. Lots of boutique stores to visit. Lots of gorgeous restaurants. And this hotel in Neve Tzedek.
Neve Tzedek, the original suburb of Jaffa, as it was, the first real suburb of Tel Aviv. It was a workers' area, small houses with little red roofs. It has now become modern houses, modern hotels. There's a French language school here. Roman Abramovich has a house here. I say house, it was a hotel. He's taken the whole thing over. It's the probably per square meter the most expensive neighborhood in Israel. In the heart of Neve Tzedek, we're on Lillian Street near the beautifully named Penis Street. Yes, I apologize, but there is a street here called Penis Street.
Oh, dear Mark.
Sorry.
Why don't we find out a bit more about the hotel in the company of the guest relations manager, Alex?
The hotel is called Elkonin by the Elkonin family. They came from Smolensk, which is a city in Russia. They came in 1912. Menachem and Malka Elkonin. They really wanted to host people. They had 6 children. It was the beginning of Tel Aviv. The neighbors wasn't looked like this. It was only sand and orange field. They really wanted to host and to develop the country. They were very Zionists. The dream came true 1 year later, and they had this idea of hosting people like their home, and that's what they do. It wasn't like an hotel, how we can see now, like big chain. It was really a place where people were living, was staying like maybe for months. In an example, we have David Ben Gurion, we have Abdallah the First, was a prince, which came here. We have also Albert Einstein. Those guests were stayed not for only a few days that we can see now, but for a longer period. We wanted to bring it back, this idea of hosting people like their own home.
It opened in 1913 and then it's reopened again 110 years later. What happened in those 110 years in between?
Right. It was the hotel, then unfortunately Menachem passed away, Malka began a little bit more old, and the children didn't want to take back the business, so they give back the hotel to the city hall. And from the 60s to the 80s, it was a place for artists, it was a place for artisanal work, handcraft work, until the 80s that it became abandoned. Until 2008, when Dominique Romano and Adriana Shaw bought the place from the city hall and begin to bring this idea of bringing the first hotel in Tel Aviv in life.
The idea to open the hotel again was in 2008. Why did it take 15 years to get to this point?
First of all, the historical building was the hardest part to bring it back. Then we also had a glass tower of 7 floors, not forgetting that we have also 3 floors on the ground. So all this authorization and a lot of work took very, very long time. And also to find the right person. We didn't talk about Robuchon, neither Clarence from the spa at the beginning. It was only for the hotel. And then little by little, Robuchon and Clarence came into the project. Took really, really a long time to build all those things, plus the authorization that is not easy to get in Tel Aviv.
With your permission, we'd love to have a look around the hotel. So would you be our guide?
My pleasure, David.
We've come up to the first floor, and room 111 is named Menachem, which, if I remember rightly, having listened to you, is in honor of the founding father of the hotel.
You are totally right, and we wanted to do kind of a homage to Menachem and Malka by naming the 2 suites with the name. We gave Menachem on the first floor. Actually, Malka was the manager of the hotel in the 20s, and that's something that wasn't really normal at this moment for a woman to be a manager of a hotel, and we gave her like the best suites in the 6th floor because of that, because she deserved it.
There seems to be a beautiful use of colour here when you come in. The walls are white, very Israeli, the curtains are cream, but when you look at the floors and the tables are terrazzo. In the hallway, when the lift opened, you got this spray of colour from the floor. Mm-hmm. There's this lovely blue carpet in the lounge area. And then the bedroom seems more white, more relaxing. It's really beautifully designed.
In terms of the guest experience, what are you trying to get across? One of the things that we understood from this brand is a femininity. Is that something that you're carrying on in this hotel?
Thanks to Adriana Shaw, which is actually the designer of all the hotel from A to Z. She has a studio in Paris called Iconic, and she decided every single piece of art and couch and shapes, and we can see in all her projects from Australia to Bahrain, she's always giving this feminine touch to her project, which is actually, it's something that is great in our time. We have really to give the right place to the woman. We are working also in the program called She Travel Club, which actually give more space, more things to the woman. For example, some training for the employee, so to how to talk to women guests. That's something that is very important. Also to light up the corridor, or to bring another lock to the room. And also something that is very important, the emergency kit. That's something that 20 years ago there wasn't in any hotel, and now a business woman that came for work, she don't have to worry about it anymore, because she will find here in Elkonin everything that she needs. She can maybe forget in the luggage.
Shall we leave Alex standing here, or he can follow us? Shall we have a peek in the rest of this suite?
Something that I really want you to highlight this is the little box that maybe our auditor could not see, but this is something called the personalization of the suites. And again, we have a reference to Malka and Menachem. We have our iconic object, which is card deck. Is Malka, when she was sick, she prepared a room for the doctor, and they were playing Gin Rummy almost every day, and that's what the story of this box.
And of course, The first card that you see are the king and the queen, and Malka, when translated into English, is queen. The lounge area is narrow but very comfortable with a, would you call that is that a chaise longue?
It's more like a couch, a corner sofa, and we can see this round shape that really Adriana wanted. Is in the colors, in the shape. We need for to be smooth to the eyes, smooth to the stay, smooth to the experience.
The cupboard where the minibar is and the coffee also again is curves. It's almost crenulated or I don't want to say corrugated because what's a word would you use for that?
I don't know what crenulated is, so I would definitely curved.
Curved.
It's like rows of curves, and then on the shelving is curved. You've got curved vases.
So we've come into the bedroom. The first thing I notice when I come into the bedroom is lots of light. Windows on two sides, lots of windows, and then what's around the corner?
The bathroom.
You're listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast travel edition. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at MarkDavidPod or mail us at markdavidpod@gmail.com. So we're heading into an elevator, and anybody who listens to our podcast on a regular basis will know that we're not scared of elevators, but we're scared if they go somewhere very high.
You are.
I'm petrified of high things, but we're only going up to the 7th floor. We're on the new side of the building, but what's beautiful here is that you can also see the old building. So even if you're in the new wing, you get to see how this building was more than 100 years ago.
And the corridors have lots of light. There's big glass walls. You can see down to the bar on the ground floor. It has a real atrium feel to it.
So I wonder where we're headed now. Alex, oh my goodness, look at this. We have come to the roof, and in the paraphernalia for this hotel, for the Elkonin, it talked about breathtaking views of the skyline of Tel Aviv. And Mark was saying, no, it couldn't really be because it's in the middle of the downtown area and you just have to be looking up at everything. But, oh my goodness me. So that's the Mediterranean. We can see out to Jaffa.
Can we see the Atlantic from the other side?
The Atlantic. Let's come around. Oh, look at this. Oh, wow. We're talking swimming pools here. It's a little bit wet where we are, but I think we can go round to the edge of the pool.
It's a beautiful infinity pool.
And we have the view all the way to Jaffa in front of us. The sun is heading down. It's actually a very strange day in Tel Aviv.
It's June and it's been raining.
It's been raining. We've had thunder. We've had lightning. Very, very unusual. Very tropical. The sun is setting. The view is stunning. We can see lots of building work going on the skyline. And we can also see up north as far as probably the Tel Aviv port. And we can also see all of inner Tel Aviv and out to the Jerusalem hills. The view is absolutely unexpected for a 7-floor hotel.
As we were driving here and you said 7 floors and it said a view of the Tel Aviv skyline, I thought, well, you're going to be in the Tel Aviv skyline without this view, but it's absolutely stunning. You've got a full 360 all the way around. You've got the green light from the mosque in front of you on the middle of Hayarkon Street. You've got the rows of hotels. And then over here you can see the business district. Right. In the middle of all of it is a wonderful bar, which, had it not been raining today, we could just crash out on one of these lovely chaise lounges. We've got some sofas there. It looks really inviting.
Alex, is this your favourite place in the hotel?
Yes, I'm a little bit emotional sometimes, but also that makes me what I am.
You're Mediterranean.
Yes, exactly. So yes, this is my favorite place, not because of only the view. You can see all the history, but not only from Tel Aviv, but 5,000 years of history from the port of Jaffa, which is have an amazing history from the first neighborhood here in Neve Tzedek, where we are above it and we can see. We have the Tel Aviv from 88 to now on our right, and as you said, the skyline, this is the future of the city. So I was talking a little bit about the cross-passing that we have here in the hotel, and that's really the place where we can see the most.
And I'm guessing that dinner is beckoning, because I think we called dinner for 7 o'clock, and in the distance from Jaffa I can hear church bells, which is not something that you think of when you're in the middle of Tel Aviv.
You're right. You can also hear the muezzin from Yafo, so you totally have this local anchorage from Yafo to Tel Aviv, from the synagogues around. You are really here in the middle, where it was as a center of life in a certain period, and we see that it beginning to be the same as before.
And for true football fans, you even have a view of Bloomfield Stadium. However, for true football fans, they've also built the Neve Tzedek Tower in front of it, so you don't have to watch Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Mark, have you bought your swimming trunks?
I have done, but I think it might be a little bit cold and late tonight. What time do we open in the morning?
We open at 7 o'clock, but don't worry, Mark, the pool is heated, 25
Oh.
degrees,
What time's it open till at night?
until 8.
We're going to have to eat really, really quickly.
Quick swim before breakfast in the morning.
Alex, it's been fascinating talking to you. Thank you so much, and not just for the interview, but for your passion about the job that you do.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you very much, Mark, for having us on the podcast.
And thank you for having us at your wonderful hotel.
Mark,
David.
you know, we talk about food in Israel a lot. We did a fantastic food tour of Arabs and Druze villages way back at the start of the podcast 2 years ago. And we just did the Machane Yehuda in Jerusalem food tour, and you love to talk about Ashkenazi food and why we don't get more of it.
And I like to eat too.
And I'm not saying anything there. But one of the things that we don't overly focus on is fine dining. Do you think that there is, in general in Israel, the idea of fine dining?
Firstly, I'd like to say one of the reasons we don't focus on fine dining is our friends hate us enough for all of the travel that we do and are very jealous. If they understand that we're eating really well to go with the travel, we'll never have a friend ever. But do Israelis understand fine dining? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Do they understand it in the same way that people in Europe understand it, or now people in Turkey or people in Dubai, where you have Michelin stars, where you have set standards, you have reviews, you have cuisine where the food is beautifully presented, there's sometimes a show that goes with it almost? I don't think that brings itself to Israel.
I guess to some extent also in terms of visitors coming into Israel, that's not necessarily what they're looking for. Maybe they're looking by and large for the, I don't want to be overly twee about it, but the sort of the falafel experience, the street food, a bit of sabich, a bit of shawarma.
I think if it's your first time in Israel and you're here as a teenager on birthright, maybe. But I think the market is much more sophisticated now. If you go to Tel Aviv and you go to Jerusalem, there are many more high-end hotels, many more high-end chains, many more boutique hotels. And people come not just for the wear a kibbutz hat experience and go and visit the kotel. There's a lot more to Israel.
That's the perfect time to bring in our next guest on the podcast, who is actually our host, who's been listening to us, I think, wondering where we're going with this conversation.
Would you like me to say his name?
Well, first of all, let's explain where we are. The reason we've been talking about food for the last 3 minutes and about 2 seconds is because we're sitting in one of the finest dining rooms, surrounded by one of the finest dining experiences that you can have in Israel.
And I would say if Michelin stars were awarded in Israel, this place would be up there. There would be Michelin stars here. Sorry, Michelin stars here.
And it's not just because of the food, but also the service. And you can tell that the staff have been trained by an international house that understands what excellent service is.
Imagine there's a chef or a company that itself has 27 Michelin stars. It's probably more than that now. And they've decided to come to Israel and open a restaurant inside a fabulous hotel.
And they would be called?
You're testing me here, Dave. Robuchon.
I don't think that's right. We'll find out. First of all, before we introduce you, how do you say the word?
Robuchon.
Mark, your turn.
Robuchon.
Robuchon.
Very well, Mark.
Go for it. You're going to
No,
introduce...
your turn. You say it now, David.
No, I can say Robuchon. Oh, you want me to introduce Morgan?
Oh.
Oh, the trouble is, I'm going to go for it, and he's going to correct me because it's been 5 minutes.
Mondolini.
Mondolini.
Mondoloni.
Mondoloni.
I'll get my coat then.
The general manager of this wonderful hotel is Morgan Mondoloni.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, indeed, we are right now sitting in our wonderful restaurant that is called L'Époque, which means the time, like the good old times where the food was nice and appetizing, like from our grandparents. And we are sitting in the Elkonin Hotel, which was the very first hotel in Tel Aviv, opened in 1913. 1913.
Mark, don't try it, Mark. Don't. Did you pass French? Your French exam at school?
I had a B and a C in French oral.
And we just opened our property back right now in late February, so it's been 3 months that we are open. Indeed, the very first Robuchon restaurant here in Israel, which is something that the late chef Joël Robuchon dreamt all his life to open here in the Holy Land. But unfortunately, it was his very last years, and he was sick, so he could not do it himself. But with his family, we continued his heritage and opened our restaurant late February.
We earlier with Alex were up on the roof. We talked about this phenomenal view. But why should somebody stay here when there are hotels bigger than yours, closer to the beach than yours, perhaps with more facilities than yours? So why would somebody, and we are talking about a luxury hotel, why should somebody stay here rather than those behemoths on the seafront?
All the hotel you're mentioning are great hotels. But I do believe that here we're not selling rooms or plates or dishes or spa treatments. We're selling experiences, emotions that will stay with you. And this is priceless. And only in very few selected locations and places you can really find this real essence of emotion that you can carry on with you. And this is the real souvenir of a stay that you can have anywhere in the world, but not everyone can offer that. This is what we do here.
I don't know how many of our audience know that generally hotels in Israel and maybe around the world, a family or a company will own the hotel and then they'll bring in another company to manage the hotel. The Romano family have bought in Accor and the hotel is part of the MGallery Collection. Why was that collection and why was that company chose to manage the hotel?
This was really handpicked by the owner, Dominique Romano, always with this goal to bring French sophistication to Israel. Accor was kind of a natural choice, but among the 40 brands that Accor has, he wanted to pick something that still give all the property, the hotel, its own identity. And this is why MGallery is different. It's not a brand, it's a collection. And in that sense, it allows completely the hotel to bring its own storytelling and identity to the guest.
Mark, I think it's perhaps important at this point to say, because in this podcast we're talking both about Elkonin and also Teatron, which are both MGallery hotels. And as Morgan just said, each one has its own USP, its own unique selling point, and that these two properties that we're talking about in this podcast are so different. And I know you and I were talking about doing a compare and contrast between the two properties, but not really possible?
I think apart from being in different cities, they're looking at different markets, they have different styles, they're different sizes almost. They're very different experiences. Here is very colourful, I think, whereas Teatron is very clean and crisp.
I think you made a wonderful point, which is to say that, if you will, each hotel has its own value beyond MGallery, generally in Tel Aviv, but that here it's about the service, the heart, the warmth. But that having been said, people still want to know what facilities you have here.
Here we do have 44 rooms and suites, half of them in our historical building protected by the UNESCO, and half of it in the glass tower building that was built right next to the building and connected by a bridge. We do have a restaurant, like we said, L'Époque by Robuchon, of 120 seats, a meeting room as well of 25 seats, and the very first as well, Spa by Clarence in Israel, with 5 treatment rooms, hammam, a Turkish bath of eucalyptus, and a rooftop pool.
We've kept Morgan here a long time. Is there anything else that you want to ask him before we let him go
A
go
couple
home?
of things.
He was hoping only once so he could go home.
He's enjoying my company. I don't know about you. I think a lot of the charm of the hotel, or any hotel, comes down to its manager as well, and the philosophy and the staff and the training. What's your philosophy about hotels and customer service and guest management?
I get that question quite a lot, actually.
I'm sorry to be repetitive.
No, not at all. It's pretty much talking about purpose and why we are doing what we are doing every day. I do my job to make people happy, as simple as that. Whether it is guests or employees, I do believe that through our action, our interactions, we can change, even by a little, people's lives. And whether it's someone looking for a job, not connected to hospitality, and creating a career out of it, or a guest, imagine arriving from a flight from New York with a baby crying on board, arriving in Ben Gurion, going through customs for hours, waiting for the luggage. The challenge here is to make people happy no matter what happened before they get into our doors. We need to draw a smile on all our faces, guests, employees, partners, everyone. This is the purpose.
My other question, other than your philosophy, is about you. How did you end up in Neve Tzedek? You're clearly not born in Israel. You've got a fascinating name. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up here.
What's his fascinating name, Mark?
Morgan.
He's forgotten.
Mondeloni.
Oh, well done, boy.
That's true. I came in Israel for love, but like most people do, people who are immigrating to Israel do it for love, whether it's the love of the land or, in my case, the love of someone. And my partner is Israeli, and I decided to move, to live together here in Tel Aviv, to leave everything I had in Paris and start over. So yes, love was the reason I moved here.
Morgan, don't listen for a minute. He's the sort of person that you just want to sort of like wrap up and take home and put on a shelf.
I think that's called serial killer.
Very creepy.
You know when you've come home, you've had a hard day, you're depressed, and you need something to cheer you up, and you need a bottle of something?
No, it's called My Wife. And obviously for you, it's your wife.
Morgan, not only thank you for this amazing interview, but thank you for the phenomenal staff that you have led the training of. Thank you for the restaurant. Thank you, first and foremost, for the smile, for the warmth and the welcome that you have brought to Neve Tzedek and Tel Aviv and to Israel.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, David.
Thank you to Sheldon Ritz at the Teatron Hotel, the general manager there, for hosting us, for talking to us, for telling us some fascinating stories about his life in hotels.
So, folks, you're going to have to look out for an upcoming podcast because we're going to have a Sheldon special where he waxes lyrical about some of the most famous people in the world and how he made them feel at home in Jerusalem. But that's in an upcoming podcast.
And a very big thanks to Greer Faye Cashman from the Jerusalem Post for talking to us and tolerating us over dinner.
And for telling us about what's missing from many hotel rooms that seemingly she's pinched.
A big thank you as well at the Elkonin to General Manager Morgan Mondeloni.
Mondeloni.
Yes, that too, David.
And to Alex.
To Alex, the Guest Relations Manager. and to everybody in both hotels that's looked after
Yeah,
us.
it's not fair to go into more people than that, but we really were looked after incredibly well on both sides at both hotels. And folks, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating. Subscribe. We're available at any of your well-known podcast providers.
A 5-star rating for these potentially 5-star hotels that we've been in.
Oh, very nice. And the reason, by the way, that Mark said, just so you know, potentially 5-star hotels, is that during COVID, the Israeli government tourism ministry put on hold its star rating program and has yet to renew it. But we can tell you from the inside that these are top-class hotels.
Absolutely. Quiz time?
Question number 1. So, Jerusalem of Gold is probably the best-known song associated... Oh, God. No, let's end the podcast now. Anyway, the question was, who wrote the song? And the answer, Naomi or Nomi Shemer.
The second question, and we are in the Elkonin, which was established in 1913, but a suburb of Jaffa was established in 1909 and was called Ahuzat Bayit, or Ahuzat Bayit.
Dun, da, 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 da.
What is it called today?
Dun, da, 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 dun, dun.
That's lovely,
Dun,
David.
dun, dun.
Is that a tune?
I'm just doing what you were doing to my question.
But mine was singing the song.
Oh, mine
you
was
did.
musical and yours is
No,
not.
mine wasn't musical. It was just singing your song.
Yours was more relevant than mine.
No, carry on.
Tel Aviv.
Correct.
Thank you. You might want to repeat the question because people have forgotten it because we were arguing. We may as well just live together. I mean, just
No.
like...
No.
Wait a minute. If we were to live together, who was going to throw the plates at each other? Would you throw it at me or I'd throw
I'm
it at you?
going to be Jack Klugman.
Oh,
Is it Jack Klugman? You
yes.
can be Tony Randall.
The very, very odd couple. And I think at that point...
You'll be the one tidying up after me.
It's time to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Doris.